Go ahead and get started. So it is minutes after 6. On the 3rd of February, we will call to order this finance committee meeting. I don't think we need to do a roll call. Cody, did you not? No, did you not?
I just want to announce it's being recorded.
This meeting is being recorded by Area 58 for future distribution on our Halifax YouTube channel for public consumption. Okay, so first order of business. I know that Katie sent out the meeting minutes on Sunday. If everybody had an opportunity to take a look at them, anybody have any questions, adds, changes, deletions? Okay, can I get a motion to approve? So moved. Second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passed. All right. This brings us to the meat of our agenda. So Cody asked us some time this week to do a mid-year budget review for the town. So with that said, we will move on to that point. Turn it over to Cody.
Sure. So everyone should have received the budget status through December. If you had a chance to take a quick look through, everything's pretty good actually. We're trending. There really aren't many accounts where we're concerned at this point. We're trending kind of in the right direction for most of our accounts. There were a few things in the review that popped up. We took care of them with an accounting, and actually they were more accounting issues. They weren't actually budget overages. They were just applied to the wrong account, which is good. That means we're still trending in the right direction. So we've been able to take care of those. There's a few, you look at like the schools account and they always show that they're using a lot less at this point in the year because they're not really halfway through their year yet, right? Because they're not starting until September. And then they encumber all their wages, which was the majority of their accounts. So you look at that and you say, oh, geez, they're under budget. They're not going to be under budget. They'll probably come in right where we expect them to. The other thing is we have a few electricity accounts that may be of concern, but we actually are in the process of negotiating a deal with the city of Brockton to purchase power credits from them at a 20% reduction. So giving 80 cents on the dollar for us, which is huge. So we anticipate that going into effect very soon. We're going to do that for the rest of fiscal 25, and then we anticipate doing it again for fiscal 26. So that'll result in some savings. I would anticipate that we level fund all of our electricity accounts for 26, even though there may be a reduction, because you just don't know. We can't guarantee it. And what we can do is we can actually purchase the credit. And if for some reason we buy too many for a fiscal year, the credits don't go anywhere. So then they can go to the next year. So it's really just continuous savings. So it's a good thing. One thing to be mindful of is they have the clerical and administrative employees for the town have unionized. We have not borrowed a contract for them at this point. We're sitting down next week to begin those contract negotiations, but I would anticipate some financial implications as a result of that. You may recall this is primarily the non-union employees that are part of that wage and personnel bylaw that did not get a cost of living adjustment for this year. So that kind of, I think, pushed them to unionize because they see the other unions are getting, cost of living adjustments and they weren't. So they have unionized. Like I said, we haven't even sat down yet, so I can't begin to say what the impact will be. But I would really anticipate probably similar to what our other unions are for fiscal 26. And then from there on, we'll see. Again, what the financial picture of the town is. That's all public information. So, but it'll be interesting to learn.
How many employees are we talking?
Probably over 20. Yeah. So we'll have about less than 20 non-union employees remaining.
And these include part-time people as well.
Yep. Yeah. It pretty much includes everybody except for department heads, our van drivers over at the Council on Aging, and that's pretty much it. Some like the stipended position, veteran services, and obviously elected positions of the union. But other than that, it's pretty much everyone else. Oh, and confidential employees can't be union either. So the staff in my office are non-union.
So part-timers get insurance?
No.
Yeah.
Over 19 and a half, so 20 or more hours a week, you get benefits. But we keep part-timers typically under 19 and a half and under, so that they don't get the benefits. So that's one thing definitely keep be mindful of. Once we start bargaining, again, I can't let you know what's happening in bargaining because that would give up our bargaining position. But as soon as we have some sort of tentative agreement, I'll certainly let you guys know. Just wanted to keep you updated. One of the other changes that we've had thus far is in our building maintenance department. So building maintenance department consists of our department head, who is the director, and we have 3 staff under him. The makeup up to this point was 2 custodial workers and a crafts person. So crafts person is a little bit more skilled. The senior custodial worker retired in the past month or so, or a couple months. And in speaking with the director, what we were able to do is we posted it for a crafts person position, and we were able to bring on a licensed plumber actually. So the cost and wages, we're going to see a little bit of an increase because we're going from a custodial worker to a crafts person, but long-term costs are going to decrease because we spend a lot of money on plumbers for some of these small things. The library alone, you look at last year, we spent close to $10,000 on a plumber. So this will be good to have someone on staff. So now we'll have a plumber on staff, we have an electrician on staff. So that's very good.
So do they have equipment to work with? Like sewer snake, blah, 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 blah?
We're slowly getting some equipment as kind of smaller things come up.
Yeah.
It may be something, Scott and I have spoken, trying to, if possible, add a little bit more into his expense account this year.
Mhm.
So when things come up, we're able to buy the equipment so we own it. But it's working through those things. And there still will be jobs that we need to bring in outside.
Right. I mean, he's not coming with a backhoe.
Yeah, it's important.
Get their excavator.
Yeah.
All good. So we should be, I really don't think any issues this year with that as far as having to do a transfer. There were a few months where we didn't have, or maybe 2 months where we didn't have anyone in the position. So that savings should kind of account for the additional cost this year. But you'll see a little bit of when we go through the budget for next year, you may see it's higher than a typical 3 or 4% for that reason. So I'll remind you when it comes to that. Accounting, we may end up with a shortfall and need a transfer. That's primarily, obviously, we have been posting the accountant position for over a year. And we were able to recently bring Lindsay on, but we've had to keep the consultant on a lot longer than we initially anticipated. So that we're starting to phase the consultant out, and then we'll be posting for an assistant town accountant soon. But again, that's kind of the cost of the business, unfortunately. One of the other things that's come up this fiscal year thus far is our landfill. So we own the landfill over here on Hemlock Lane. That's the town-owned landfill. We have a landfill monitoring contract with an engineering firm. You may recall it falls under our Board of Health budget, somewhere in the range of $20,000 a year. DEP contacted us in late November. You may have heard of this PFAS and said you have to now test for PFAS, and it has to be done by the end of this year. And then it also has to be done every 6 months with your other testing. Obviously, that didn't give us any time to go solicit bids, so we had to use our current engineering firm, which we think will probably be the cheapest anyways, because they're already out there, right? So it's really the cost of sampling. So that's somewhere in the range of $4,000 to $6,000 for this fiscal year for that one sampling that we didn't anticipate. And again, you'll see that in the budget for 26. Probably an $8,000 to $10,000 increase, and that's again DEP is requiring it twice a year, all year of our wells. So. And then the last big thing that's come up this fiscal year is our veteran services agent, Steve Littlefield. So that's a stipended position, but it's based on really like a 12-hour a week commitment to the town. The state's come up with new accreditation requirements. So in order for him to submit and assist with claims for veterans, he has to be an accredited veterans agent. He's gone through all the training. Caveat, you have to be employed 20 hours a week as a veterans agent in order to receive this accreditation, or he cannot help people with claims, that's huge, right? That's a big factor of what he does. So we're in a grace period right now. That is likely to end sometime late winter, early spring. And at that point, we will need to bump his compensation up to a level of 20 hours a week, and he'll work more. And then again, that's something you're going to see on the budget for fiscal 26. We've explored the idea of creating a district, veteran services district. You have to be It has to be within a budding community, so that limits our options there. And I've reached out to every budding community, and there is not interest at this time. So but again, we want to continue to provide that service to the town. So those are kind of the only big things that have come up this year, which is good. And obviously, some things have come up, but it could be a lot worse, relatively speaking, and operationally halfway through the year.
Do the other towns have their own veteran services program with somebody that is doing 20 hours a day?
Some are full time, yeah, or even Hampton, for instance. So Hampton was going to be without someone, reached out to us and said, "Can you fill in for us in the interim?" Oh, no, let's make this permanent. In meeting with their team, it's not something they have an interest in doing. They will want their own person, their own control over it. You have to have two strong towns, two solid administrations that get along and can just make it work and not care about kind of the control aspect and not care of. And so we do conservation with Bridgewater, and the way that kind of it works is 20 hours a week in both, but you also recognize there may be a really busy week in Bridgewater where she's there 30 hours, and that's okay, as long as when we need her in Halifax, she's here for us. A lot of communities don't operate like that, and then it becomes not really viable. Plimpton has someone only a couple hours a week, but they weren't looking to expand at all.
So they would just go away then. They can't use that.
Well, that person worked in another community, so they technically have should be able to fall under the accreditation because they work in another community full time. They basically just do Plimpton as a side here.
And the amount of hours that I was spend on that, we can fill up to 20 hours. Like we'll keep them busy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's definitely a lot. I think what Steve does now, not bare minimum, but Steve gets all the claims out, and all the payments get out, does the veterans parade, and does everything he can, but he's not really having events and other than the veterans parade and things like that.
Does he have is the workload there for the hours pretty much doubling?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely.
Does he still have those couple of assistants he had there for a little while, or is he by himself again?
Assistant, but take that for what it is.
Yeah.
Volunteers. It's basically it's a committee. It's so they can assist with some of the event planning stuff, but when it comes down to the kind of nitty gritty of payments and processing applications, that's all you. So that's again hasn't hit yet. But I anticipate it will be hitting this fiscal year, and you'll certainly see it on the budget request for fiscal 26.
And I'm assuming because we're talking about it here, he's on board with the hours jump. That's not an issue for him.
It's not an issue now. No.
Yeah, no, he's a good agent.
Yeah, and again, I think the way you have to do a position like that, where he's not full time, is he has office hours here, but then there's times where he's out on a Saturday meeting with a veteran, or he's at a Monday morning, he's at someone's house. Not every community wants to operate like that. A lot of communities want it. You're in the X town hall 2 days a week from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yeah,
it just that type of position just doesn't work.
Yeah,
unfortunately. But we'll continue to explore if there's an opportunity for it. We'll certainly jump on.
Cody, on the energy credits, you and I talked about this before a little bit. Do we have an idea of how many dollars we're talking about on energy credits?
Spending or saving?
Saving.
I mean, tens of thousands, probably around 100,000 range.
Annually?
Well, as long as Rockland was eligible.
Yeah, but we're looking about 100,000 in.
Yeah, so I would anticipate somewhere in the 50,000 range this year, because we're half of the year basically. And then I'm hopeful that Brockton, which they've said that they would be available to sell them. We're going to pull the trigger right on July 1st as soon as that money is available for us and buy basically the year's worth of electricity. So there were a few things that we had to do behind the scenes to make it work, where right now we contract for our electricity, which was already a savings. We needed to combine the bills because previously we were billed separately. National Grid would send us the bill for delivery, and then Direct Energy is the supplier we contracted with, would send us a separate bill for the supply portion. You can only apply the credits to the National Grid bill. So what we wanted to do was put all of that into the National Grid bill. So that took some kind of work behind the scenes, but that's done now. And yeah, when you're talking schools uses electricity. So that in itself is gonna save us a lot of money. And I've extended the offer to Silver Lake as well, if they want to jump in. Any other questions, kind of mid-year things?
Up on the landfill, some erosion issues up there, have we taken that into account yet, or are we doing that?
Yeah, so there's kind of two options for that. There, and the board is considering that the board's actually doing, the board of selectmen is doing a site visit on Tuesday afternoon out there with our engineer. So if you go out there, there is some erosion, the liner's starting to get exposed. DEP hasn't formally issued a notice that we need to repair, but
But it's coming.
it's coming and we will take care of it.
Which landfill?
Right down.
Oh, down.
Yeah. So what we had an engineer do was look at it and say, okay, basically give us two options. Option one is cheapest way to fix it right now, and how much time does it buy us? Option two is let's fix the problem so this doesn't keep happening. Option one, Band-Aid, the idea, maybe it lasts 3 to 5 years, somewhere in the range of $30,000 to $50,000. Option two, about $1 million. But there is some opportunity to bring in reclaimed soils to basically build up the edges of the landfill. And with that, we would be charging a fee to bring those soils in, and it would probably offset the cost of the repair. So two options there, no decisions.
When you say reclaimed soil, talk about industrial type soil.
Yes.
Look, just like low contaminated soil.
Not even contaminated, so we wouldn't bring any of that in, we would have the basic permit level where it would basically just be like a topsoil.
Now, the engineer we got at TRC,
Yes. Yeah.
and they're a big outfit. And the $1 million part of that, that's just preliminary budget numbers they put together.
It is, yeah.
And they would just manage a subcontract for that, or are they going out to get bids for their, because TRC won't actually do the work.
No, we would have to go out to bid
Yeah.
because it's such a large project. The town would actually have to go out to bid.
But they're just getting the engineering cost numbers right now.
Yeah,
And they'll just do the oversight management of whoever the town chooses for a subcontractor.
correct, yeah. A very high level overview at this point. They didn't want to dig too much in because if we're not.
Right, yeah,
gonna do
no, I
it,
get everything.
move forward.
Yeah, you can get in deep real quick.
Set on top of the.
No. So it would be $1 million to kind of fix the whole problem there. But the idea would be we could probably bring in about $1 million in revenue.
Okay.
So it'd be a cost effective. Again, the select board is looking to determine which option they think is best to move forward with. If we do move forward with a larger scale project, it's going to take a while. And there's also a lot of procurement hurdles that we need to try to work through. And then also just budgetary financial hurdles, right? Because state law is you can't revenue, right? It comes in and goes to the general fund.
Yeah.
You can't just say, we're going to take this money and use it for this. So now you have to create probably some sort of revolving account at town meeting, get the approval of town meeting, and set the revolving limit, right? We set limits every year, but now you're talking about setting a limit of maybe $1 million. Most of those limits are 20, 30,000. So, and that's once we get past the procurement. So long road, if we did that, I would anticipate a couple of years before that was complete. And then we're also working, last year, I think it was 2023, the town, we brought the town meeting an article to allow us to lease that land for solar purposes. Town meeting approved that up to a 30-year lease. We went out to bid, we got a proposal back. We only had one bidder. It's a relatively small piece of land for solar. But we did get one bidder back. We're currently in negotiations with them, but you're talking probably an additional revenue of somewhere $50,000 a year with an escalator of 3% every year. But again, that gets put on hold if the big project moves forward. If we move forward with a small project, we can have them put the solar on and we'll have to Band-Aid it right over the next few years. And until, I think it was a 25-year lease, so you have to continue to Band-Aid it. But once you do that solar, you can't go back and do the big project, because you have all of that solar there.
Makes sense.
So a lot of,
The revenue from the solar will just go to.
what's that?
The revenue from the solar will keep going to the Band-Aid, if it's on that.
Yeah, ultimately. Other questions on the budget so far? Everything going on?
There's a number of departments that have unexpended funds from articles that they've given. Is that something, is that,
As part of our review this year, is we're going through looking at all of those. A lot of these smaller, dollar amounts here, they're just things that have been left over that we're gonna close out, at the end of this fiscal year. So, and then there's some that are larger that if they fall under a specific department, we'll make sure we speak to that department and say, what's going on with it. There could be various factors playing into it. But one of the things, I think I've explained this before, but one of the things that was done very differently here was typically when you approve something out of free cash, it's a capital item. That's very normal. That's what we should be doing, and that's what we are doing going forward. What you've seen here in the past was things that have always been tight and are tight. So things that maybe weren't a capital item but needed to get done would get approved through free cash and have an article in here. So there's one in here for it's department head training. That's good. We use it. We do department head training. That's not really a capital item. It shouldn't have been an article. We should probably have a line item in our operating budget. Department head training isn't a one-time thing, right? We should always be doing training. We have a training budget of 10. It used to be 5,000. When I got here, we increased it to 10. But $10,000 for training for 100 plus, right, full-time equivalent. That doesn't cut it. So what they did was, okay, there was a need determined, we need to do some additional training for our department heads. Let's go get an article as a one-time expense. And there's a lot of things like that in here that we're trying to clean up but the problem is you need to somehow weave that into your operating budget, and the operating budget is very tight, particularly right now. So we are cleaning those up, and when in fiscal 26 budget, you will see all of these small ones gone. Because if the project's done, we need to close those out. They're not meant to stay open to take up ancillary costs that may come up in the future. And that's what has happened is you bought a vehicle, you asked for 70,000, you were able to get the vehicle for 55. Okay, good. Now let's close that out. That money goes back to free cash. What has happened is that's been kept aside, and maybe in a couple of years, if the vehicle needs some new lights or something, then they use that same thing. But, well, it really wasn't. It falls under the vehicle, but really isn't what we should, what the purpose is.
not the intent?
So,
That number, Jim, total of $100.
Well, public buildings and properties is 470,753.85.
which page is that, Jim?
That's on page 19.
Does that have to do with the ATA that we didn't finish?
Well, that,
What was that?
Yeah, so we have
part of that.
200,000 of that is the ADA stuff, which we've
They spent 200, it was 422 total.
and we have about 150,000 outstanding right now for the sidewalks over at the Council on Aging and the library and stuff. So that'll be depleted down. One of the other big ones is the fire station mold remediation.
Yep.
We're actively seeking proposals on that right now. Problem is you can't find mold remediators that want to do a public job with prevailing wage, and also at a fire department. Everything watched. So that's another big hitter there.
The roof and walls of town water, 221. There's an article from
Oh, that's been fully expended. That's gone. So where it says unexpended, there's nothing there. Yeah, so that was took care of that. This a couple of the other ones, 39,000 for the portico repair. We just got proposals for that. We had to get that engineered. It's another problem. We've had a hard time getting engineers. We finally got engineers, which you see that expenditure there. And the same thing with the library window repair.
So about the one from 2012. Insulation and vapor repair, the town barn. 192,580. 33-087.
Yeah, so those are the types of ones we're gonna go through and make and check with the party, right?
Well, if you did, it's the responsibility of the department head to spend the money that they get, right, and make these repairs. They came to the town and they asked for the money, they got the money, and then it just sits there. So now this is 11, 12 years old, 13 years old.
What you have with that is likely, you had somebody here, a different department head, asked for it, left, new department head came in, he knows about it, but I'm guessing didn't know about it right away. And then, you know, I don't know if it's something we even need anymore, but those larger amounts where things haven't been expended, those are the ones we're going through. What's the plan with this? And we want the plan, not just it needs to be done.
Right.
What is the plan to get it done? What's the timeline? And if not, okay, we're gonna close it back out, because the reality is that 13,000
Right.
isn't gonna do it anymore. We really need that.
Just send it back, start over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of those we will, and then like you see a lot of these smaller ones that, right, you know, or the odd numbers, $5,074.80.
Right.
That's something that we probably, this project's probably gonna finish, and they're probably sitting on it, so we're gonna close those out at the end of the fiscal year. All those kind of odd ones that have been done will no longer be here at the end of this fiscal year. If you look at a budget status from last fiscal year at this time to this, there's left, it might not look like it, but there are left, and I'm gonna go through and try to clean it up. We're gonna, you know, continue that in this, but there were some last year for $55, $74, just things that were never cleaned up.
Did we get a free cash estimate?
No, we did get free cash submitted, but it has not been certified yet. So hopefully by next meeting, free cash will be certified.
We're gonna spend another $150,000 on the ADA. We've got outstanding. What's that gonna put the balance of the ADA from the 500 at?
The remaining funds, you mean?
Yes, remaining,
Yeah, somewhere in the 50,000 range, 50 to 70,000.
That work hasn't been done yet.
It hasn't been completed yet. Some of it's been done if you used to look over there, but it hasn't been completed yet.
a lot of been done.
Anything else on it?
No, that was the big one there, you know, going through those numbers. And corrupt.
Revenues are trending, we can actually share that with you at the next meeting, but revenues are trending right where we would anticipate them to be trending. Not higher, not lower. So we're trending above fiscal 24, which is good. But you know, certainly not at a rapid pace, kind of right on line where we would expect them to be. It's hard when you look at our revenues because our billing right goes out in cycles. So it may look like, oh geez, we only have 20% in right now. But yeah, motor vehicle excise, for instance, hasn't gone out yet, and that's a huge portion of our royalty receipts. So we always, when we compare it. So I compare February 3rd, 24 to February 3rd, 25, and do a year-to-date comparison. So we're comparing apples to apples. But we can share that with you for the next meeting.
Yeah, they started all that, well, not all construction over the old Nezarella spot. I'm assuming that construction is associated with the Starbucks and the other
supply.
auto supply, not associated with the storage units in the back 40. Is that correct?
It is.
Yeah, and then there's the rebuild of the old Chinese restaurant going on for the walk-in clinic. So those are all permits that are happening, correct?
They are. It's good. We want growth. Growth is good. The negative is timing, right? So what we do is for fiscal 26, our new growth is whatever's there as of January 1st. So if it wasn't there January 1st, well, they're not getting tacked on it for fiscal 26.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, we obviously want to do our due diligence, but we want to work with our regulatory and permitting boards to move people through the process, right? Because and you look at Thorndike is a good example of a 55 plus condominium. Not saying that they could have maybe gone through the process sooner, but let's say they had been able to get things in and maybe they started that project a couple months sooner. They probably would have been a lot further along as of January 1st. Right now, we're getting them per foundation for January 1st. Not a ton of value. Now, if they had an additional 3 months, well, they might have had a fully framed building that could have increased it. Again, you're not talking hundreds of thousands, but you could be talking tens of thousands, on a project of that size. And effectively now it will do it kind of in place, what's their January 1st next year, and then it'll get taxed on, or assessed on that for fiscal 27. Right? But we kind of not lose it. Well, we lose them. We just ultimately on the growth.
How many they sold, you know?
I don't know the exact number, but I do know they're selling them. They're selling pretty. Okay.
That's what I heard. They are, I mean, expensive. People are, But then they were, I'm thinking very tight, level. Very plain. You need to come out and then, you don't have to mow, you don't have to shovel, and I didn't think that was a bad price for a lot of people, but just,
I think it's commensurate with the market.
it's like, do anything for the town, and bring in more traffic.
You don't wanna go too low because that is,
Exactly. We want that, and it's an over 55, so.
you need to build one and it's. Back to all these people. They're all 55 and they're all fighting.
No, we're like,
They have nothing better to do.
Hopefully Halifax doesn't have that.
Believe me.
Not the big city like.
We are, the next, the big city.
Big city.
Okay, anything that you can think of that is something that we didn't account for last year that's coming through?
No, we've done it.
Bad or indifferent, I guess.
no, I think we've done a pretty good job. Health insurance is kind of right on track.
Retirement's still gonna be what it's gonna be, the retirement fund that we need to contribute to.
Yeah, so that's an actual number. We have that. Actuary gave us that, so we have that for fiscal 26. That's the most 10% increase in Plymouth County retirement. Can't do anything about that. They did last year extend out when we will be fully funded. The negative to that is we're not going to see relief now until 2031, I believe it is. So before it was 2030, now it's 2031. So we got to try to get through these next kind of 6 years. Once you're through, we're just funding the annual contribution. We're not trying to make up for it. So that'll be good once that gets there. But until then, we're going to continue to see those increase. Property, liability, workers' comp insurance, kind of right on track where we anticipated to be. They're anticipating 10% increase for fiscal 26. So again, what you'll see when we start going through the budget is it's on the shared drive now. Fixed costs is killing us. The things that we can't do anything about, retirement, insurance, health insurance, and property liability, workers' comp are just totally killing us. Can't change those things.
Debt service, any issues there?
No, not really. It's not the municipal bond market. It's actually pretty stable right now. A lot of people, because it's a pretty good thing to buy because municipalities are usually pretty good investments. So we're not seeing too many issues there. We only have one project that so town meeting authorized us to long-term borrow on the water project. We met with our financial advisors last year and determined we weren't going to go long-term borrowing at that time because we were only looking at about $1.6 million. Initially, we thought we were going to have to borrow somewhere in the $3 million range. With the other monies that have been allocated out of retained earnings in water department, we were only at $1.6 million. And you can't do anything under a 10-year borrowing, right? The long term. Right. So we said, does it make sense to do a 10-year? We'll lock in for 10 years at paying that interest. So let's do a band. So we did a band for this year. We're meeting with them again. And I think we're going to likely roll that over again because I think retained earnings are going to be healthy again this year. Okay. And we will be able to pay down probably, my goal is $500,000 again this year. So then worst comes to worst, we roll over 2 more years and we're out of it in 4 years versus 10. Yeah. And once you get to $1.5 million and below, you're paying significant with your interest rates because it's such a small project for someone who's buying municipal bonds. It's just sense.
Are there any big capital projects in there? The real big ones?
I think probably within the next 5 years, we're going to start doing a feasibility study for public safety. You're far out from actually constructing it, but we are going to need to start doing a feasibility study to determine kind of the future of those two facilities. Those are probably the biggest things. Obviously, Council on Aging is ongoing. We're still working on, again, procurement with the designer. So we have no PM on board. We're looking to get a designer, but we have some procurement challenges that we're working through right now. Hopefully that still comes in. We had built in a contingency, so I think we'll be stable there. The other thing we'll have to look at is what do we want to do with, we have a lot of historical buildings that the town owns. It's great. There's a cost to the owning these, so, and we have somewhat active historical group in town, but they don't get utilized the whole time, these buildings. So we're gonna have to make a decision in the next 5 years or so. What are we gonna do with all these historical buildings? Now you're gonna have the Pope's Tavern over there too, when we move into the COA. So, and again, our facilities team, they spend a lot of time, over there, making sure these buildings are kept up with. And then the old museum,
The one down on South Street?
No, the right,
The one near the police station was the.
yeah,
Where the Brockton store.
next to not the Brockton store, next to the old library,
Right.
and the old museum. That will, I think we need to come up with a plan of potentially moving them over to Pope's Tavern, which actually has some historical value. It's not just an old building. There's historical value there. So it makes sense to put kind of all of their artifacts maybe in there. And then, as we look at operations, we may look to do some sort of remodel of that space and use it as some additional office space or meeting space. We don't really have great meeting space. And the way the offices are set up, particularly here, like in our regulatory departments, very separated, which makes it somewhat challenging. So again, that's long-term, but I think those are really the only things. Public safety in the next 10, 15 years probably is the biggest.
You're not gonna get a credit.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So we got to start with that. School, again, I'm not sure. I haven't seen their capital plan, but I do know it's come up for the past several years about air conditioning over there at the elementary school. We have the newer boilers, but we do have that old backup. So Kathy Stanley, our energy manager consultant, actually just secured a grant to do a decarbonization study over there, basically looking at adding some heat pumps in and doing but not air source heat pumps. We want to do potentially a water heat pump. No, a water source heat pump, so we could effectively still use the water system in place, the hot water system in place, and it would draw the heat from the hot water, so we could still, it would almost be like a hybrid system. You're starting to see that in some of the bigger buildings. Yeah. So they're going to study that, and then with that, you would be able to add the electricity, and the goal would, not electricity, air conditioning. The goal would be there's hopefully significant grant funding up there for it. The way that the town was approaching this previously was just looking at adding air conditioning. You're not getting any grant money for that. The grant money right now is with the decarbonization, so over the heat pumps. So this study is going to look at that and also look at what's the electricity needed. Does National Grid even have enough electricity to bring that in? Because they'd have to upgrade the service even. So other than that, those are kind of the big things that we're looking at. Ambulance in the next couple of years we're going to need, which you say an ambulance isn't too bad, but that's 500,000 now, and a 2 to 3 year wait list. So our ambulance is great right now, but we have to think: is our ambulance going to be okay in 2 to 3 years? Well, probably not. We have to start. So looking at that. Fire trucks are in pretty good shape. Maybe in 5 or so years, we need to look at ordering one new fire truck. Ladder trucks are in good shape though.
Yeah. That's great.
Go to the, two, electric chargers out here in the parking lot. How do those work? We get revenue off of those or?
Here at Town Hall,
Yeah.
no, those are, we do not charge a fee for those. Those are primarily used for our town vehicles here.
The ones at the library.
The ones at the library, once they're interconnected, they'll be, yeah.
They will
they'll
be
have to be- Yep. they'll have to
They're
pay.
waiting for that generator, they're waiting for.
What, the transformer? Yeah.
Yeah, the transformer, National Grid we're on the list apparently for sometime in the next week or two.
So these ones out here are not for the public then?
I mean, the public can park with them. They're level 2 slow chargers. So even if somebody parked there for several hours, the amount of electricity being utilized is minimal. Very minimal. The reason that we don't charge is, again, this is the chargers that were put in there were very kind of basic chargers at the time. Probably not the best software to put in for commercial use. About 6 months ago, we were informed by the company that they were leaving North America, is what they said to us. As of next week is what they said too. You have 7 days, we're leaving North America. And your chargers are no longer going to work, is what they said to us. So we had 2 options. They were either buy new chargers and put them in, or we could kind of sign on with this new vendor who was doing this workaround to make them work, but there was a per kilowatt-hour fee that we were going to have to pay to them, which doesn't work well when we're charging our own vehicles. We're not going to pay to charge our own vehicles, right? So I said, so they kept calling, and I said, well, let's let them leave North America and see if they still work. They still work. We can't charge a fee is the thing.
Right.
But again, they're really not being utilized by the public all the time. We have 2 electric vehicles here, and they're primarily used to charge our vehicles. Yeah.
Well, like I say, if it's slow charge, then we're gonna help the public by much.
No, it's a caution. Yeah, if someone plugs in while they're in here, town hall, paying a tax bill for 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So they didn't put that transformer in, why didn't they put the balls in first?
I'm not sure.
I hope they didn't put balls in, because that's
I would assume
a
so.
nightmare car right there.
Mm.
Okay. Anyone else?
So National Grid will get the fee off of the, library.
No, we do. We own this.
Oh, we don't know.
Yeah, we own this.
But National Grid paid to put them in.
Through federal incentives that we
Right.
weren't eligible for. So National Grid did not pay to put them in. We contracted with a company called Livingston Energy. Livingston Energy basically said, you know, as a municipality, you're not eligible for these federal tax credits, but we are. So we'll put it in for you. A system like that costs somewhere $200,000 to $300,000 to put those in. And if there's any overages, we'll eat it. We're not going to charge you anything. So they got the incentives from federal incentives and some incentives from National Grid, but we contracted with Livingston Energy as the company.
Yeah, so there'll be a fee for those then.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the fee will just cover the cost of the electricity and then any sort of annual software costs.
Right.
Because we can't profit on electricity as a municipality in Massachusetts, but we're really just providing a service.
What's going on with Stop and Shop? You heard anything from anybody over there? They got the sale and or lease signs, they're up, so.
Interested?
They go for it.
We haven't heard any.
No, planning to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce, see if they can try to do some advertising on our behalf. It's tough if you were in a good geographical location, right? A spot like that. Never mind given our geographical location. And there's one of them that closes in Rainham, right on 44. Prime spot.
Yeah.
They still don't have anything over there, looking to go in there. So it's very challenging given the geographical. And we have zoning limits, right? So if they want to come in and do commercial, they can come in and do that. But anything beyond that, they really can't do. Potentially, if someone wanted to do some housing in there, well, as it's going right now, you could put, I think, less than 10 units in there. You're not spending millions of dollars on that building.
Yeah,
Putting-
the demolition of that structure. Yeah.
Probably go to the pot factory.
Maybe, I don't know, going out of business too, though. Marijuana places.
Yeah. Oversaturated market.
That's another thing, we did lose that 3% impact fee, right? The state, so in the state, when these marijuana dispensaries first came out, it was, you could negotiate host community agreements with them. You had to negotiate host community with everyone. And there were a few, the primary benefits were you could adopt a 3% local tax, which the town of Halifax did. Then you could also impose a 3% community impact fee. The idea was 3% of their gross revenues because there's an impact on the community beyond a typical business. Well, as these businesses got up and rolling, everyone realized there may not be an impact beyond a typical business, and the regulation came out and said you can't charge the 3% flat fee. So we actually had to just the Cannabis Control Commission actually rejected our agreements. We just had to redo those agreements.
Yeah.
So we still get the 3% tax, but we don't get the 3% impact fee.
Yeah, 3% tax is the max we can charge.
Yeah, right. But it's significant. I mean, we're even just in those two shops in Halifax, we're bringing in over $150,000 based on that 3%. No, we only
No,
elevated routes and farm.
Yeah.
unless it's an illegal operation, don't.
No.
They kind of have to fight that.
No, that's just it's little stuff like back.
But I think it's interesting that we don't want to like coffee shop, we want 2-year ones.
We'll have all the major coffee.
All right, okay.
Thank you, Cody.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it. All right, any further questions for Cody? Anybody? Okay, going once, twice, and times, so we'll close out that agenda item. Moving on, so for the liaison reporting for FY 26, everybody either done or completed your department head meetings? Or you still have yours? Okay.
I'm done.
Here's one,
I'm done before we get started.
Yeah, yeah, it was okay.
Okay.
The dog there, if I said that last week, I'll look at it.
Okay, so we will close out that specific line item, moving on to any committee liaison updates. So Cody, we still need another date for the zoning bylaw committee for us to get together on that.
Correct.
I think that's the only thing that's outstanding in that. So far as our liaison,
Capital Planning Committee's meeting at the end of the month.
right?
You have a full group for that, Cody?
We do, yeah. I think it's the first time in like 10 years, actually. Good.
Are you on this yet?
Yes.
All right, so, well, that's it for the community, committee liaison updates. Correspondence or as me arrived, I haven't received any emails, Cody, I don't think you've gotten anything. Anyone else for the finance meeting? Okay, so, we will, move on from that line item. Public participation. Anyone on the phone wish to chat, bring something up for the finance committee? Okay, hearing none. We will move on. Okay, which gets us to the last line item, which is the next meeting. So the next meeting normally would have been the 17th, but that's President's Day. So do we want to do the 18th? And like we did the last time, just bump it out a day. Is everybody okay with that? And that'll be a virtual meeting.
Some week or.
No,
I'll be here, when you get back, I'll be back.
Be back to the following July.
Yeah, make sure you don't get sand in the key.
Oh, I think you make it.
Okay, yeah, it'll be a Zoom call, it'll be a virtual call, yeah.
And then just the 11th, we have the, joint meeting.
Right, the 11th is a joint meeting with the
And
selectmen.
then it's going to Zoom.
That's not
That's not a thing, that's the school.
6 o'clock.
Are you going to the,
What's going on?
when you meet on, what's the date that they're meeting for, the 10th, right? The 10th.
That's the elementary school, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I've got that marked on my calendar, so I'll certainly.
We did invite a group from the elementary, the elementary school committee
Yeah.
to attend this meeting on the 11th. So meeting on the 11th really twofold. One is we have this wage and personnel public hearing, which you'll get, I'll actually send those out later this week, the proposals. I don't know if there were any other than a few things that I'm recommending. And then the other is we need to start looking at, big picture finance for fiscal 26 with the board. And no one wants to talk about it, but we need to look at, is there an appetite for an override? No, that's not saying definitely yet, not saying a dollar figure,
Right.
but is it something that the town wants to explore? Because it's already February. We basically have 2 months to kind of get everything finalized here. And that either means, based on the information we're getting from the school, significant cut, or an override, or a combination of both. And we just need direction. Ultimately, the selectmen are the only ones that can decide to put an override on the ballot. So the idea is to have a discussion with them. Is there, are they interested? Are they interested in exploring it? To what level, and what would they like to do?
can you forward the meeting for the 10th? By chance?
I don't know if it's posted yet, but I will.
Okay. Maybe that's why.
So what are we gonna discuss, the override with the selectmen?
Mhm.
When's that gonna take place, the next selectmen's meeting?
On the 11th.
The 11th.
While you're here for the public, the wage and
While
personnel.
we're doing the personnel, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we'll do the wage and personnel first. I don't anticipate that taking very long, and then we'll go right into the joint meeting to start talking budget. And I think if you haven't seen it yet, the budget with all of the requests are in the finance committee folder. Everything is filled in. And also I've started putting in recommendations based on, so you'll see in there. The biggest thing again is the school, but if you look, you'll see things are tight on the general government side of things. That there isn't things there. Public safety.
No way to grab that.
No, public safety is zero this year.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Right? Public safety, you don't get a 0% increase. But we're getting by with a 0 this year. And that's not because that's what, the public safety necessarily wanted, but it's, we had some decreases in the police department due to retirement. And then we had to pare down the fire department request just because it's not there, right? We have to be realistic. So, but I'd recommend you take a look at that prior to this joint meeting so you can get an idea of where things are coming from.
When do you want to do a walkthrough of the budget like we did last year?
I mean, so when we start talking departments coming in, I would say you probably want to have in the big departments, kind of just an overview of what they're looking at. But then I don't, like we did last year, I don't think you need in the smaller. So
No, I agree. I agree. We don't need the smaller.
So I think if we did, police, fire, highway, library.
Buildings.
Buildings.
Did you want buildings in there? You can't, they have 3 line items. It's up to you guys. It's wages, preventative maintenance, and their expense account.
Yeah.
And all of it, other than wages, is pretty much level funded. You can't, I just don't know how much it's gonna give you.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend you do, police, fire, highway, library is a pretty big operation. Schools, obviously, you wanna have it in a few times.
Katie has her hand up.
Oh, I think that cursor.
Oh.
We're gonna try to do all the same night.
You could, maybe you break up and do public safety one night,
Yeah,
and then the next meeting you do library.
yeah.
And then I can go through and kind of explain all the other, rental increases.
We're doing
So we're probably talking March timeframe where we're gonna move to like a once a week meeting to get through this stuff.
If that, we're ready to go. I mean, we have a budget. If you take the school,
Get through next week, bro.
we have a budget.
Yeah,
So I think get through next week, but I wouldn't wait till March necessarily, maybe like the last week of February, start meeting, because again, either way, you're looking at a lot of work going into this.
Tim, was gonna be in person. We got them in.
no, the in-person stuff, we can certainly do that if that's what the group wants to do. But
Wait till what? I'm home on the 25th. Could you wait till February 26th? If we're gonna do that?
Well, if we do in-person meetings with just the finance committee, we can do a hybrid like this, where where someone can't make it in person, you can join. The only reason we can't do it on the 11th is because we're having it in the other room, and that room is just really impossible.
We're going to do a hybrid, and they're gonna choose. Department is probably gonna choose to do it remotely.
And they want to save money.
So we get off by the water.
Yeah, there you go.
Down there. I'll give them all to them.
Okay, the next meeting, you will have the one.
next week is the joint meeting on the 11th. The week after that, which is the 18th, I think, the Tuesday meeting for our regular meeting. And then the following Monday, people start bringing in, the marks. That work for everybody? Yeah. Well, we'll have the virtual meeting on all the agendas, so if anybody can't make it, yeah. Okay. So again, just to repeat, next week, the 11th, is the joint meeting with the selectmen and the schools. The following meeting on the 18th is our regular meeting, which will be virtual. And then the following week, we're going to start bringing in the departments to go to the budget.
So the 24th, we'll start bringing in.
Yeah.
Departments.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about anything we've discussed so far? Good. And that is the last agenda item that we have. Good. A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Not opposed? Okay. Thanks everybody for coming.